Think for a moment. If one day, everything that once felt easy to you suddenly, without warning, came to an end, no peace without effort, no food without waiting, no ground feeling soft beneath your feet, no breath feeling light. So tell me, what would the first day feel like? This story is not only about Adam, peace be upon him, coming to the earth. This story is about the first day of being human, when paradise was left behind and life became heavy. Nothing happened suddenly. Coming to the earth did not happen with a scream. Arriving here did not feel like a fall. It was just that the place that existed before was no longer there, and the place that had never been felt before was now standing in front. No noise, no sound, only a change. Where before everything was given, now everything had to be learned. And from this moment onward, the journey of the earth begins. And Adam, peace be upon him, was now on the earth. As soon as he arrived on the earth, nothing was said. No questions, no answers, only feeling. The wind was moving, but not like before. The ground was beneath him, but not like before. Adam, peace be upon him, remained silent. Because when a human being for the very first time stands in a place that is completely new, he does not speak. Instead, he becomes silent. This was also the first time that the body felt its own weight. In paradise, the body was just a body. Here, the body became a burden. His feet touched the ground, and the ground answered back. Adam, peace be upon him, stood upright, but his breath grew a little deeper. Because knowing and living are not the same. After some time, hunger was felt. It had been felt before as well. But before, hunger did not wait. Here, hunger began to press. It began to demand waiting. And waiting slowly quiets a person from the inside. Adam, peace be upon him, remained silent. He did not push the hunger away. He did not fight it. He understood it. He chose patience. Because patience is not only endurance. Patience is understanding. And here, nothing came on its own. No food, no rest, no comfort. The earth gives everything, but only after it is asked for. And asking is not only prayer. Asking is effort. Adam, peace be upon him, moved his hands for the first time. And when hands begin to work, fatigue arrives. And fatigue reminds a person that you are no longer a guest. The earth was not a punishment. It was a responsibility. Adam, peace be upon him, did not come here because he was abandoned. He came here because he was entrusted. Allah did not send the human being with a burden. Allah sent the human being with a trust. And when a person carries a burden, he can break. But when a person carries a trust, he begins to recognize himself. Here, there was no sound, but the silence was not empty. Sometimes Allah does not reveal everything at once, because what must be understood is meant to unfold with time. Adam, peace be upon him, was alone, but he was not without direction, because a path is not found only through words. Sometimes the path reveals itself with time. Adam, peace be upon him, knew that this was not the destination. But knowing and feeling are not the same. On the earth, everything has to be learned, and to learn, a little breaking is required. Adam, peace be upon him, was on the earth, but his heart was still somewhere else. And from here, something else was about to begin. The earth no longer felt silent. The silence had moved. Now it lived inside the heart, a silence that cannot be seen, a silence that does not ask questions, but a silence that is deeply felt. Adam, peace be upon him, was walking. He was still moving forward, but for the first time, walking felt lonely. The earth was the same, the wind was the same. Nothing outside had changed, but the feeling of companionship was no longer there.
Tafsir tells us that Adam and Hawa, peace be upon them, were on the earth, in different places, not together, not within reach. The Quran does not describe how, it does not explain where, and it does not fill the space between them. The Quran chooses restraint, and when the Quran remains silent, we learn to remain careful. We do not rush to imagine. We do not rush to explain. We honor that silence. We sit with it.
We only know this. Adam, peace be upon him, was no longer only tired. Fatigue was not the heaviest thing he carried. He was alone. Not because no one existed, but because someone was absent. And being alone is not only about distance. It is not only about someone not being near. Being alone is the name of a loss that the heart slowly recognizes before the mind can explain it. Loneliness does not make noise. It does not shout. It simply stays inside the heart. Adam, peace be upon him, sat on the earth at night. Around him there was no sound, no one to ask a question. And when there is no one, a person begins to hear himself. This was the first time that Adam, peace be upon him, became aware of his own breath. And in that same moment, the memory of paradise began to return. Not all at once. The memory of paradise did not arrive suddenly. It came slowly. Step by step, it moved closer to the heart, to a place where loneliness had never existed, to a place where nothing had ever been missing. Adam, peace be upon him, was not thinking of going back there. His mind was not searching for return, but his heart was remembering. And remembrance is not a punishment. Remembrance does not wound. Remembrance only tells us what we were made for. When the human being breaks from the inside, when there is no one left to listen, he turns toward Allah. He makes dua. And dua does not always begin with words. Sometimes, dua is only silence. The dua that Adam, peace be upon him, made was not only a request for forgiveness. He said, "O my Lord, I have wronged myself. If you do not forgive me, if you do not show me mercy, then I will be completely lost." These words were not created by Adam himself. Allah taught them to him. And this truth is very deep. It means that mercy is not only to be forgiven, but that being taught how to ask for forgiveness is also mercy. The distance between Adam and Hawa, peace be upon them, was not without reason. If everything had remained together, the heart would never have awakened. Distance deepens the heart. Distance teaches a human being his own need. Adam, peace be upon him, was not only far from Hawa, he was drawing closer to his Lord. The earth felt heavy, and the heart became heavy. And when the heart grows heavy, a person does not only live, he pauses. And then he begins to search, not for answers, but for meaning. Adam, peace be upon him, was no longer only on the earth. He was in the middle of his journey, between what had been left behind and what had not yet arrived. Not at the beginning, not at the destination. And in this in-between moment, where nothing is clear, for the first time, the inner voice can be heard. And this was the moment when his heart had finally awakened. Adam, peace be upon him, began to walk, not because he knew where to go, but because standing still no longer felt possible. The path was not clearly visible. What lay ahead, what would happen next, no one knew. Each step was being taken only because stopping was no longer possible. Adam, peace be upon him, did not know when the meeting would happen, and he also did not know how it would happen, because when a person places trust in Allah, it is not necessary for everything to be understood. Dua was no longer only silence. Dua began to walk alongside. With every step, the heart grew lighter, not because everything was fixed, but because the heart knew that Allah was not far away. And when a human being is with Allah, loneliness does not remain as deep. Nothing was complete yet, and until something is complete, a human being does not step back. And perhaps that is why meeting becomes precious. Time does not break a person. Time prepares a person. Adam, peace be upon him, continued to wait, but he was not restless, because patience is not only about stopping. Patience is trust. The Quran does not describe this moment in detail. It does not fill every space. And when the Quran remains silent, there is adab within that silence. A silence that is not empty. A silence that teaches restraint. This much we know. What separates also meets again, but only when the time arrives. Not with noise, not with tears, not suddenly, only with peace. This journey did not teach Adam, peace be upon him, how to search, because not everything is meant to be found quickly. This journey taught him how to walk without complaint, when the path felt long, how to remain patient without answers, when silence offered none, and how to hold trust, even without certainty, when moving forward was the only thing left to do. Today, we are also walking, sometimes behind something, sometimes only behind the feeling that something is missing. A quiet feeling, one that does not leave. And perhaps this absence is not a mistake. Perhaps it is not meant to be filled quickly. Perhaps it is the very fire that teaches us how to walk. Adam, peace be upon him, continued on his journey. And with time, what had felt distant no longer remained distant. But the most important thing was not who was met. The most important thing was this: the journey had changed the heart. Because Allah does not bring things in haste. First, He prepares the human being. And when a person becomes ready, meeting becomes only one step away. And this story does not end here. In the next chapter, we will reflect on this, when a human being learns how to live with the weight of life, how Allah begins to open paths for him.